Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Worcester, Massachusetts. I'm Sarah Stewart. I'm the minister here. It is wonderful to have all of you with us this morning. I'm leading worship this morning with our Director of Faith Development, Samantha Namath, our Assistant Director of Faith Development, Abigail Hannaford-Riccardi, and our broadcast tech, Eugene Rossi. Sue and Bob Shaw are our head ushers. We are very pleased to have Ulysses Loken and Kristen Carney back with us as our guest musicians this morning. Here at First Unitarian Church, we strive in loving fellowship to honor the sacred, connect with each other, and serve justice. We are a welcoming congregation. Whatever your age, race, class, or nationality, you are welcome here. Single people and families of all kinds are welcome here. LGBTQ folks are welcome here. Those of all physical and mental abilities are welcome here. The doors of this church are open to all, and we are so glad you are here with us this morning. Welcome to those of you who are joining us online. You can like this video to help others find it and subscribe to our channel to find more content. We have musical performances, children's stories, and past services. If you'd like to get involved with everything we do as a church, please sign up for our newsletter by going to firstunitarian.com and clicking subscribe to our newsletter at the bottom of any page. If you are in the Worcester area, I invite you to join us at 10:30 every Sunday morning for worship and fellowship. Everybody is welcome to come to a social hour following the service in the church parlor. You can get there through either of these doors, and this door on my left is the accessible entrance. If you are a newcomer, please stop by our welcome table on this side of the parlor. We have gift bags for you. There's a volunteer who can answer questions, and you can also sign up for our newsletter and to get a name tag there. There are announcements in your order of service. I would just like to draw your attention to one of them in particular. We are having a Lenten mini-series this year led by my friend and colleague, Kelly Murphy Mason. This is a Zoom offering. There will be a 90-minute webinar next Monday exploring the ways spirituality and religion foster human flourishing. And then there's going to be a follow-up on a topic of interest to the group, probably either forgiveness or gratitude later on during Lent. So I'm looking forward to it myself, and I hope that I'll see many of you there. You can email Kelly to get the Zoom link. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Your whole self is welcome here. Whoever you love, whatever your body and mind can do or not do, whatever your heritage, however you understand your innermost self, despite what you have done or left undone. Here, in this house of the holy, you are welcomed into the encounter with the most sacred. We celebrate all the identities we bring with us, all the forms of our being. Grandparents, neurodiversity, the willingness to try new things as we age. Being a sibling, a parent, an activist. Being queer, being persistent, being altruistic. The identities we inherit from our ancestors and the ones we create for ourselves, the ones we will offer to our children, and the new ways they will understand themselves as sacred children of God. All of us and our whole selves are welcome here. Amen.
Harrison is lighting our chalice this morning.
In the spirit of love,
we light this chalice. Please rise in body or spirit to renew the covenant of our church with the words printed in your order of service and appearing on your screen. In the love of truth and in the spirit of Jesus, we unite for the worship of God and the service of all. Our opening hymn is number 360 in your gray hymnals, Here We Have Gathered.
Good morning. Today we have our Why Are You 2 meeting, but big change of plans. We're going to be in the chapel. Why Are You 2 is our high school youth group, and this meeting is all about planning their youth service in June. So come, bring your ideas, bring your excitement, because leading worship is one of the greatest things that youth can do. Today at 2 p.m. we have our Dungeons and Dragons meeting from 2 to 5 in the dining hall. And then next week, Faith Development is leading the service, and today we're going to be practicing for a skit that we're going to do. It's going to be focused on hope and vulnerability. So if you want to help participate, you can come today, you can email me, or just show up next week at 10 o'clock and we can rehearse together. Today's story is called 2 New Years. My family celebrates 2 New Years. Rosh Hashanah in the fall and Lunar New Year in the spring. One follows the Jewish calendar, and one follows the Chinese calendar. One began in the Middle East, and one began in East Asia. They represent different peoples with different histories, cultures, and traditions. but in many ways, they are also alike. Both New Year's mark the passage of time. As this year becomes last year, we sweep past troubles out the door and cast old mistakes into the depths. As next year becomes this year, we pray for future success and try on new beginnings. Both New Years bring family home. Children and grandchildren reunite with bubbies and zadies, rejoice with mamas and yayas, and remember our ancestors who live in our hearts. Both New Years inspire delicious dishes. We prepare foods that symbolize togetherness and the heartfelt sharing of good wishes. Abundance and unity, fruitfulness and renewal. Long life and prosperity, and a sweet year ahead. Both New Years soar with unique sights and sounds. We hear the blast from the ram's horn and the clatter of firecrackers. We lift our voices in song and see lanterns lift into the sky. We say goodbye to fear and regret, welcoming new joy and hope. Together, we watch, listen, and celebrate. One family, 2 New Years, a shared year of double blessings. Thank you.
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, help me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. Precious Lord, you're the one that I build my life on. You're my rock, you're my hope, you are my song. You picked me up and made me strong when my when it was wrong. Here's my hand, precious Lord, now lead me home. When my way grows dreary, take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home. Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me home.
I'd like to invite all my children, friends, and volunteers to the Landers area for our neighboring faith class and our Soul Matters class. Thank you.
Our common prayer is the responsive reading at number 598 in your gray hymnal. The words will also appear on your screen. May every creature abound in well-being and peace. May every living being, weak or strong, the long and the small, the short and the medium-sized, the mean and the great. May every living being, seen or unseen, those dwelling far off, those living nearby, those already born, those waiting to be born, may all attain inward peace. Let no one deceive another. Let no one despise another in any situation. Let no one, from antipathy or hatred, wish evil to anyone at all. Just as a mother with her own life protects her only child from hurt, so within yourself foster a limitless concern for every living creature. Display a heart of boundless love for all the world in all its height and depth and broad extent. Love unrestrained, without hate or enmity. Then, as you stand or walk, sit or lie, until overcome by drowsiness, devote your mind entirely to this. It is known as living the life divine. Please continue your own thoughts and prayers in silence. In this time of prayer and meditation, we share the joys and sorrows of our church with one another. One among us lights a candle of hope for healing their marriage. Samantha Namath, our Director of Faith Development, lights a candle of healing for her husband, Andy, who suffered a sudden and unexpected cardiac arrest earlier this month. He is home from the hospital and on the road to a full recovery. A member of our larger community lights a candle in memory of Eileen Farrow, a Shrewsbury resident who died violently 50 years ago. Madeline Silva lights a candle in gratitude for Joan Russo, Jane Beckwith, and Marge Ropp for making a recent Sisterhood Health and Safety Night a success. We give thanks for the increased awareness of health and safety in our congregation. Jeff lights a candle for the family, friends, and followers of Alexei Navalny, who died a martyr's death this week in a Siberian prison camp. May we remember his sacrifice for the land he loved. We hold these candles of gratitude and memory, of healing and hope in our hearts. We know there are those joys and sorrows which go unspoken among us. And so we reach out to one another in compassion as we say together the prayer of Jesus. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Our ministries at First Unitarian Church thrive because of your support. Once a month, we are privileged to share our collection with good work being done in the community. And today we are donating our collection to our own family support fund. Our members Jeff Conlon and Stacy Hill are here to tell us more about their work.
Good morning. As many of you may know, about 10 years ago, First Unitarian entered a formal agreement with the Centria Care Alliance to sponsor a refugee family. Although that formal agreement has been fulfilled, we continue to support this family and others as Worcester, as we all know, remains a hub for refugee and immigrant families. We have welcomed these newcomers to our congregation, to our neighborhood, and this congregation has offered generous support in many ways, through volunteer hours, through monetary donations, donations of clothing, transportation, and friendship. A small group of First U congregants, the Family Support Circle, continues to actively provide assistance where needed. It can be a long and difficult journey when you no longer feel safe in your own country and you feel you have to leave for the safety of your children, while not knowing what the future may hold. Imagine for just a moment arriving in a foreign land with nothing but perhaps a backpack or a suitcase and not even speaking the language. Both of these families have made such a journey and are now happy to have permanent resident status here in the United States. How about a little round of applause on that one? Being so far from their homeland and families, this church has become their family. They're all members of this church, and their children are involved in the faith development program. Both of the moms have steady employment, they have steady housing, and the children are doing well in school. One is an honor student at Worcester Academy on a full scholarship. She also is on the swimming team. Another one is enrolled in a special school for the deaf, where she plays varsity sports. And just recently, she traveled to Kansas with her basketball team. All that is to say, with hard work and perseverance and generous support from this congregation, things are definitely looking up. Those of us in the Family Support Circle who have witnessed their efforts over the years are very proud of what they have accomplished during that time. We would like for the 5 children in these 2 families to be able to broaden their horizons of what's possible for their lives in the years ahead. Toward that end, Stacy will share with you what today's Faith in Action collection is about.
Probably most of us have had a transformative summer camp experience at some point. As a middle schooler growing up in the Midwest, for me that was Camp Lac du Bois, a French language camp in Minnesota. Only French was allowed at meals. It was very quiet. And we learned to say, passez-moi le whatever, very quickly. Before the pandemic, our newcomers' children did attend a day camp at Camp Putnam in New Braintree. When Camp Putnam shut down, my husband and I created a backyard day camp. The kids came out and we swam in the pool. We made pancakes on the camp cook stove. We did arts and crafts. We went hiking in the rain. It was really a lot of fun. Last year, many of the kids did attend Camp Weagora here at church. But these kids are growing up, and they have a wide range of interests. Some are very interested in sports. One is a budding artist, and one hopes to be an engineer one day. So today, for the Faith in Action collection, we're asking for your support to provide each of these children with a summer camp experience of their choosing. Summer camp experiences can be transformative with the opportunity to expand current interests and explore new ones, and to make new friends and connections. With your help, these kids will have a great summer. Thank you.
The ushers will receive this morning's offering, or you may scan the QR code in the order of service. If you're online, you can text the number on your screen or go to firstunitarian.com and click Give Online at the top of any page. Everything we do as a church is thanks to your support. I'm very grateful for the work of all the people who have been part of the Family Support Circle over the years, and this is our chance to all be part of the good work that they do on our behalf. I invite your generous contributions for this good work of First Unitarian Church.
To fling my arms wide in some place in the sun, to whirl and to dance till the white day is done, then rest at cool evening beneath a tall tree, while night comes on gently, dark like me. That is my dream. To fling my arms wide in the face of the sun, dance whirl till the quick day is done. Rest at pale evening, a tall slim tree, night coming tenderly, black like me. Night coming tenderly, black like me. I too sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen.
Our first reading is from Exodus chapter 3. Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian. He led his flock beyond the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of a bush. He looked, and the bush was blazing, yet it was not consumed. Then Moses said, "I must turn aside and look at this great sight and see why the bush is not burned up." When the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush, "Moses, Moses." And he said, "Here I am." Then he said, "Come no closer. Remove the sandals on your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground." He said further, "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. God said, "Come, I will send you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." But Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" God said, "I will be with you, and this shall be the sign for you that it is I who sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall worship God on this mountain." But Moses said to God, "If I come to the Israelites and say to them, 'The God of your ancestors has sent me to you,' and they ask me, 'What is his name?' what shall I say to them?" God said to Moses, "I am who I am." He said further, "Thus you shall say to the Israelites, 'I am has sent me to you.'" Our hymn is number 325 in your gray hymnals, "Love Makes a Bridge." Our second reading is a story from China, The Great Turtle of the Eastern Sea. It's also known as The Frog in the Well by Zhuangzi. Long ago, a frog lived in a shallow well, but he did not know how very small it was. One day, a friend of his, a great turtle from the Eastern Sea, came by. The frog looked at the blue circle of sky above him and noticed the turtle peering down into the well. The frog croaked, "Hello, friend. I am so happy you've come for a visit. I bet you were just thinking how perfect my home is. I think it is too. See, when I want to go out, I can hop to the rim in one jump. And when I come home, I simply hop down and find a cozy hole on the broken wall of the well. If I jump into the water, it comes right up to my armpits and holds up my cheeks so I can rest. And if I choose to walk in the mud, it covers up my feet so they never dry out. When I look around at the wriggly worms, the little crabs and tadpoles, none of them compare with me. I am the Lord of all these waters, and so I am satisfied. The frog said, "My dear friend, why don't you come in and look around my place?" The turtle smiled and slowly began to climb down into the frog's well. But before the turtle could get very far, his right knee got stuck in the well's small opening. He tried again with the other foot, but finally the turtle hesitated and retreated. He did not fit in the well. Then the turtle shared with the frog about his home. "Let me tell you about the great East Sea," said the turtle. "I live in a place so vast you cannot imagine it. Even the distance of 1,000 li cannot give you an inkling of the Eastern Sea's width. Even the height of 1,000 ren cannot give you an idea of its depth. In the time of King Yu of the Xia dynasty, there were floods 9 years out of 10, but the waters of the sea did not increase. And then, in the time of King Tang of the Shang dynasty, there were droughts 7 years out of 8, but the waters of the sea did not decrease. The sea does not change with the passage of time," said the turtle, "and it is so enormous that its level does not rise or fall according to the rain." "My friend," said the turtle, "I must tell you that the greatest happiness of all is to live in the immeasurable Eastern Sea." After listening to the turtle's words, the frog began to understand his own insignificance. Sitting in his beloved well, he looked up at the turtle and knew there were many things he had yet to learn and many things he had yet to see. We are in the midst of the celebration of the Lunar New Year, often called the Chinese New Year. It's celebrated in China, but also in many other cultures in East Asia and Southeast Asia. And I learned a little bit about it from a website put together by Professor Di Luo from the University of Alabama, which I'll share with you now. The Lunar New Year is on a 12-year cycle, and each year has an animal. This year, 2024, is the year of the dragon. I like this because it's my year from when I was born. I have seen it described as the year of the wood dragon, particularly this year. The dragon represents power, success, honor, and luck. Who wouldn't like to have that as their zodiac animal? Thousands of years ago, the Lunar New Year was a religious celebration. But now it is more cultural than religious. It's a time to celebrate family, have a party, welcome a prosperous new year. It's associated with the color red and with fireworks, which help scare away evil spirits and welcome in a peaceful and prosperous new year. The Lunar New Year is not my personal tradition. It's not part of what I celebrate in my family, and I had to go online to learn more about it to share it with you today. But celebrating something with other Americans who celebrate it, being happy about the Lunar New Year with the many Americans who celebrate, is one of the privileges and promises of pluralism. It is what makes America great. What makes this pluralism great is that right now in February, during Black History Month, we also celebrate the Lunar New Year. It's that right now, this is the Christian season of Lent, but when Passover comes around in April this year, we as a congregation will celebrate Passover too. The pluralism of America is a Christmas wreath on my door and a shrine to Buddha in my neighbor's backyard, both together in the same city on the same street. We here as Unitarian Universalists at First Unitarian Church, we celebrate pluralism within our own congregation. We don't have a creed here in this church. We don't all sign up to believe exactly the same thing. So we bring our diversity of beliefs with us into this congregation We bring our diversity of backgrounds and understandings into this congregation, and people who believe in God and people who don't, and people who find meaning in the stories of Jesus and the stories of the Torah and the stories of ancient China can all come together in this space and be in religious community together. We are dedicated in our congregation to the value of pluralism. Unfortunately, there is a strong tendency in the larger culture to think of diversity of identities as a bad thing. There's a tendency that sees threat in difference, as though these differences are not something to be celebrated, but as though we all need to be the same, that somehow my identity is only valid if everyone else shares it. Or because there's some recognition that people are different from each other, as though we have to put our identities in some very carefully prescribed lanes like entries on a spreadsheet. And if they don't fit in exactly the right box and column and row, they're no good. We have seen this again and again in cultural issues over the past, over really all of America's life, but I'm thinking of just the issues that have happened in my lifetime. I was a pastor in New Hampshire during the fight for gay marriage, and it was as though two women or two men getting married somehow threatened heterosexual marriage, something that I just couldn't understand. What difference did it make how two other people chose to be married and live their lives together? It only expanded the possibility of love and commitment in our country. It did not diminish my marriage to my husband at all. The same thing is true about welcoming religious minorities. America can act as though a Muslim woman wearing a veil or a Jewish man with visible prayer knots underneath his jacket is a threat to someone else's Christian identity or agnostic way of living their lives, instead of celebrating that as part of what makes our country special and good. Our pluralism helps us to see identity as a source of strength. When our identities are devalued, they can be occasions for mistreatment. Yet our identities are our superpowers. They are what make us ourselves. They inform the unique ways that we connect to the holy. Last week in my sermon, I talked about Sojourner Truth. And I shared something I had learned, which is that her famous speech, which I had learned as "Ain't I a Woman?" She didn't actually say that. She said, "I am a woman's rights." Her work lived at that intersection, the both and, the multifaceted whole. She was a woman who had been formerly enslaved and was now free. She carried identities as a Black person, as a woman, as a person who spoke Dutch, as a mother who had lost children, as a preacher, as a religious person. She was illiterate, and yet she was a powerful speaker and interpreter of the Bible. Sojourner Truth's life and work is an example of what's called intersectionality, the idea that there is power where all these different identities and understandings of ourself come together. So she was doing women's rights work as an African-American person and reminding the white-dominated suffragist movement of her time that Black women needed rights too. And she was doing abolition work to try to end slavery as a woman, and reminding people like Frederick Douglass that women's rights mattered in the abolitionist movement. She was a preacher and a woman at a time when women were not often suffered to preach. And she was an author and a speaker with no formal education, reminding everybody who heard her that you didn't need to go to school or even be able to read to be a powerful presence for what was right in the world. Intersectionality means that no identity is left out. And it encourages us in our encounters with one another always to be ready to listen, to understand more about the people we meet, to be ready to widen the circle to include more identities. Intersectionality is sometimes derided as a competition to see who is the most oppressed, as though identities were something we stacked up on a list to see who's is longest. We're back to the spreadsheet analogy. Let's see how many things we can list about ourselves and how many boxes we can fit them into. But I long for a world where we see all of our identities as superpowers and where we are all on a team together working to make the world a better place, and the more superpowers, the better. I was reminded of this thinking about the story of the giant turtle of the Eastern Sea. I first heard this story from Paul Ropp, a beloved late member of the church who died in 2019. Paul was a China scholar. He was ill for several months before he died, and on one occasion I visited him, and he was telling me about his life story. He was telling me about how he loved to play football as a kid, about a trip to New York and the books that he bought and the plays that he saw there. And then he interrupted himself to stop that story and tell me instead the story of the giant turtle of the Eastern Sea. It was read by Paul and Marjorie's son, Ben, at his memorial service. That story, which I read earlier in the service, it's usually understood to mean that the frog is foolish to think that he knows everything about the world just because he lives in a perfect well. In fact, in China, the title of the story, Frog at the Bottom of the Well, is an idiom that means a person whose knowledge is limited and doesn't understand anything outside of their own worldview. But the way Paul told it, he emphasized the wisdom of the frog as well as the wisdom of the turtle. The turtle knows something about the vastness of the world, about the greatness of the Eastern Sea. But the turtle can't get into the well. Only the frog knows the joy of living in the dark, wet crevices of the well. They each know something true about the world from their place in it. This was so true of Paul. He had grown up in a small community in rural Illinois, and then he was able to go to college and become a scholar of China and travel the world and teach other people about the things that he loved. He knew that both of these things are superpowers. Understanding life from inside the well and understanding the vastness of the Eastern Sea. Who and where we are informs how we understand the world, and it's quite possible that every single one of us knows something true about the world that no one else knows quite the way we know it, and that we can let that open our hearts in compassion for others. Because we know something to be true about the world, and we know that's true of someone else too. They have some experience that I have never considered and that I'll only find out about if I listen to them with an open heart. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and we affirm the connection that every person has to the divine. That little thing that each one of us knows about the world that no one else knows, perhaps that is that strand of connection between us and the holy, the piece of sanctity that we have been given to treasure and take care of and share with others. If the giant turtle of the Eastern Sea and the frog in the well teach us that our identities are sources of strength, then the story of Moses teaches us that all of our identities connect us to God. You may know the story of Moses. He's an Israelite, but he was raised in Pharaoh's household. There's a very complicated story about him being discovered in the bulrushes, and his mother becomes his nursemaid, and his sister grows up with him. But at any rate, he is an Israelite who grows up in Pharaoh's household. A very privileged man, at a time when his people, the Israelites, were becoming more and more oppressed in Egypt, being forced to work without pay and being beaten without consequence by Egyptians. Moses sees such a beating one day. He sees an Egyptian beating an Israelite slave, and out of his anger and love for his fellow Israelite, Moses kills the Egyptian Pharaoh finds out Moses has to flee to another country, Midian. He marries a Midianite woman. He becomes a shepherd. He's living a happy life. He's left all of that trouble behind him. He has left a piece of his identity as a person with power in Egypt behind him. And he is happy now living as an Israelite in Midian. And of course, it is then that God uses his identity to speak to him, to Moses, out of the burning bush. Moses tries to get out of this mission that God is sending him on to free the Israelites. He tries to say, I can't do that, God. Who am I? I'm just living here in Midian with my wife as a shepherd, and anyway Pharaoh wants to kill me, and anyway the Israelites won't believe me. Nothing about who I am is enough for this mission, God. I don't think you should send me. This is what a prophet is supposed to say. A prophet is supposed to protest a little bit before they take up the job. But God says to Moses, being itself is sending you, Moses. The God of being is sending you back to the Israelites to free them. It is exactly your being that makes you the right person to do this job. It is your identity as an Israelite, as a person with access to Pharaoh, as somebody who has lived out here in another country and knows what they know. It is these aspects of your being that make it possible for you to go and do this work. Your being connects you to me, Moses. It is your being that makes you holy and sends you forth. Brian Bantam writes, another pastor, a man who grew up as a mixed race person. He writes that all of these identities bind Moses to all of these people and stories and lands, even if they don't always see it. And your home, Moses, is with all of them in the uncertainty, the ambiguity, the check all that apply. Your people will be free because of all of these identities within you. Our identities are not a threat to people whose identities are different. Even if we're in the minority, even if our minority is tiny, even if the identity we are claiming is something that only we know about the world, just being ourselves does not damage other people. And at the same time, identities are not a competition to see who has it the hardest. All human suffering deserves our compassion. All good triumph deserves our celebration. We do not need to weigh our hurts before being kind. Our identities charge us with a connection to the holy and invite us to open our hearts in compassion to one another and seek to make the world a better place for all people. In this new year, may we learn to celebrate the diversity of culture and experience that makes us who we are. May we know that every human being is blessed and every source of kindness and love is holy. I love you all. Amen. Our closing hymn is number 168 in the Gray Hymnal, One More Step. Please rise in body or spirit to sing. Go forth into the world in peace. Be of good courage. Hold fast that which is good. Render to no one evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Help the afflicted. Honor everyone. Love and serve the holy, rejoicing in the power of the Spirit forever. Amen. Please be seated.